Welcome to our latest installment of CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope. The so-called Blue Wall is a collection of Rust Belt states that until 2016 had voted for Democratic candidates in presidential elections dating back decades. And in 2012, the trend continued. Barack Obama won Wisconsin by nearly 7 points, Michigan by more than 9, and Pennsylvania by more than 5. But last November, powered by an energized white working class, a Republican wave caused that wall to come crashing down. And some of the counties within those states tell a similar story. President Obama won Erie County, Pennsylvania, a traditionally Democratic stronghold with an industrial economy, by 17 points in 2012. But President Trump flipped it in 2016, edging out Hillary Clinton by 2. So after the inauguration, my colleague Jamie Yukas traveled to the town of Erie, Pennsylvania, and found out if and why residents there were hopeful about the incoming Trump administration. And then, 100 days into the Trump presidency, we sent Jamie back.
If you look at it realistically, how many people are coming up that want to be mechanical, that want to work with their hands, want to do, the so-called dirty jobs of manufacturing? Not many. It's a different age. It's a different mindset.
Here we are. This isn't how I picture Erie. No.
This is rare. We had snow 2 days ago.
You did have snow 2 days ago. Okay. My goodness. That's a good pour. It's good. It's a really nice Riesling. Thank you.
Vineyards like this are part of Erie's big push toward tourism. Despite it being the fastest growing sector, it still makes up less than 10% of the workforce in Erie.
What glass are we on? I know they're trying to make it a tourist destination here.
What, tourism, and that's 3 months out of the year?
Yeah.
So you're kind of rolling your eyes a
little bit?
I think Erie's in that transition where manufacturing is going down and tourism is still kind of holding it up a little bit, but at some point tourism won't be able to sustain it.
Are you optimistic about Erie?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not crazy optimistic about the future of our work.
Who'd you vote for in the presidential election?
I voted for Trump.
You did?
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah, Donald Trump comes off as, super out there and crazy, but I think there's benefits to his background, and I think it was a change worth trying, so that's what I went for.
A change worth trying. It's a sentiment we heard over and over here in Erie, Pennsylvania, in the days after Trump took office.
I voted for Trump because status quo wasn't doing it anymore. Well, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be in school at 54 years old, I would have told you were crazy. Erie is definitely a sinking ship, and time to get out of this town.
Who really won the election? The workers who have either been outsourced, outplaced, forgot about, they had enough.
He's come through a lot of tough things. Like, you could see him be stressed about what he was going to do for his job.
Can you give me my last signature when you're done?
There's so many frustrated people with the local leaders not being able to help them that they said, let's see what Donald Trump can do.
I'll tell you, he adds a lot of life to my old life, I'd like to see him stick around, but I don't think he's going to be able to.
So how do residents of Erie feel now, 100 days into Donald Trump's unlikely presidency? Are these lifelong Democrats who flipped for Trump starting to see the kind of change they voted for?
Well, we're going to go to a place that is kind of like an Erie landmark. It's called McGarry's. is the place where my whole family went for my grandparents' wake after their funeral. So it's got a special meaning. What are you gonna get? Salad? They got good kick-ass salads here.
After 54 years, tonight will be Jim Stewart's last night in Erie.
Are you sad Grandpa's leaving?
He's sad.
Jim lost his job at GE a little over a year ago and entered a retraining program to become an HVAC repairman.
We try to see each other at least once a month. It's gonna be a shame when everybody lives so far away. Yep, I'm gonna miss this place.
Tomorrow, Jim will move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, in search of something he's convinced he won't find here.
Huh? I don't work. I don't have a job. That's why I have to move so I can find a job. If I don't sell the house, eventually the bank will do a short sale on it, which means they take it over and they sell it for whatever they can.
Jim listed his house more than 4 months ago. Still, no buyers.
I can't pay for 2 houses when I'm starting over again. We'll give Grandma a hug.
Bye, sweetie.
Hey, Jamie,
How's it
how
going?
you doing?
It's good to see you
Nice to see
again.
you as well.
How are things going?
Good.
Getting ready to graduate?
Yep.
You excited
Only,
or nervous?
4 weeks, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
More excitement more than anything.
So, how are Grandma and Grandpa?
Good. Get to talk to them every day, which is awesome to be with your grandparents.
Yeah.
Then of course, you got like the job search going on and different stuff in there.
How's that going?
Good. Well, as good as it could be, I guess. You know, I got applications in at GE, and I have applications in Erie Insurance.
Okay. You said you and your friends used to sit kind of at lunch and start looking up Nashville or other cities. Are you still doing that?
No, I don't. You know, a lot of people have asked, you know, have you applied outside of Erie yet? Like, what's your, you know, backup plan? Well, I kind of respond to, well, for me, it's Erie.
Justin Gallagher is a college senior whose family has lived here in Erie going back 5 generations. Justin comes from a long line of Democrats, but in the last election, like grandfather, like father, like son, all 3 generations voted for Donald Trump.
You were a family of Donald Trump voters. Mm-hmm. What do you think of Donald Trump's first 100 days?
I think that Donald Trump has the vision of, you know, following through on a lot of the campaign promises that he made, and I think he's been trying to do it. He's made it very clear what he wants to do and what he wants to accomplish in the 4-year term, and he's learned in the first 100 days that sometimes Congress isn't going to cooperate.
While others are leaving Erie to seek opportunity, Justin is determined to stay and create it.
Those kids were literally, if you remember, Rolling Ridge, they were in the hallway, having class in the hallway. You can't sustain a whole district and say, I want to just cut everything out. You have to have that surplus in order to operate.
But we do. We have a sinking fund, we have a capital reserve fund, we have millions of dollars in investments. I mean, there's real people out here that are actually hurting. You know, $50 is a week at groceries, as Bill said in our finance committee meeting.
And now we're not even
Justin was the youngest person ever elected to public office in Erie, winning a seat on Harbor Creek School Board at the age of 19.
Why did you run for school board?
Because I know people in this community that are currently laid off. I know people that lost their job at GE and are collecting unemployment. I mean, I talk to those people on a weekly basis, and I know that they're hurting. And at some point, somebody has to be the voice, and somebody has to be a leader, and somebody has to take action. Maybe it's possible that I could be the voice for more people.
Job I have now, I've been at about 6 weeks. I'm machining still.
After 9 years, Todd Burnett was laid off a year ago from a decent paying job at GE. Now he works for nearly half his old salary at an automation company making parts for machines.
I made more money and I got more for my money 10 years ago. We're actually working more for way less right now than we did 10 years ago. I'm fortunate I have a good skill set. I can land jobs. There's not many of those out there, right? So you have the same groups of people kind of moving around in groups trying to get these same jobs. The number of jobs like that has not increased.
The number of manufacturing jobs may not have increased, but in fact, the number of people and the nature of people seeking those jobs has.
We make composters, as you tell over here. We make these every day.
So do you make a lot of gardening, yard?
Yeah, garden work, yes. Dog kennels and other sorts.
How many people do you have working?
About 160, yes.
What do you pay?
Out here in secondary, it goes between $9 to $12, $13 an hour, and on the platform, it's $15 an hour.
Is that pretty good pay for this area?
It's a starting pay. I mean, 15 is decent around here.
Are any of these people ex-GE workers or people that came from other manufacturing jobs that were laid off?
None of these people here are from GE. Most are refugees.
Refugees?
Yep. We do employ probably 40, 45 refugees. We have some people from Bhutan, some from Congo, people from Iraq. They're good workers. We were looking for people to fill a need, and they're the ones who applied. They want a job, they have family support. They're like every other person.
Per capita, Erie is home to one of the nation's largest refugee populations. Just over 10,000 refugees live here.
Where are you from?
Bhutan.
Bhutan? Yeah. How'd you end up in Erie, Pennsylvania?
I born in Bhutan, actually. I born in Bhutan, and something 24 years I stay in the Nepal like refugee.
Like a lot of refugees in this area, Karna came seeking a better life for his family. He's lived in Erie for 6 years and has worked the same job since he moved here, making just $12 an hour.
Do you like this job? Can you feed your family working here? No? You work 2 jobs?
1 job.
1 job?
Only this.
Just this?
Yeah. We're trying.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you again. Hi guys. How are you? I like your anklets. You're welcome. So how long have you lived here?
Something 3 years is here.
3 years?
Yeah.
So how old is she?
11 months.
11 months old. Oh, hey sleepyhead. Are these your joys?
Yeah. They make some fun. If I'm tired, they make me happy.
This is why you work so hard.
Yeah.
You're a ham for the camera, aren't you? You like the camera? No, I don't believe it. Do you like living in Erie, Pennsylvania?
I love this house, then I stay here.
What does the neighborhood look like? Who lives in the neighborhood?
Many people from the other country, not only the Bhutan.
Do you want to be a U.S. citizen one day?
Yes.
How far away do you think you are from becoming a U.S. citizen?
Something like 1 year.
1 year? You hope to be a U.S. citizen in a year?
I'll try.
Yeah.
If I fail in one time, again I go another time.
You're gonna keep trying.
Yeah, trying. One day success.
Yeah. You know, Trump, he put up a travel ban for a number of refugees. Do you worry about your neighbors or your neighbors' families?
Yeah, because we are also same peoples, If they send us from here, what we do? We have no land there, and we have no work, nothing's there. Then what we do for the kids? That is the problem. Kids, they make the future good for the kids. That is why people are here.
We went to a manufacturing plant yesterday who's hired refugees because they said those are the people applying.
What do those jobs pay?
$9 to $12 an hour.
Exactly. So minus the benefits you have to pay. What are you actually cashing in on Thursday or Friday, whatever their payday is. When you have people that are willing to accept those wages, you kind of set the standard for what's acceptable. You know what I mean? And so if you have a lot of those people filling those positions, that's now the new norm. So how do you expect to bring that wage back up again? Why do I want to go stress out for $14 or $15 an hour, holding tight tolerances or risk killing myself working on some dangerous equipment? You can bring back all the jobs you want to, but if they're not going to pay an attractable wage, it's kind of like you didn't really gain anything.
With the president being elected, at least now, manufacturing is part of the conversation. Do you feel better about where you're at in the conversation?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the conversation. But you've just got to hope for the job numbers to come back big. It's got to be a big comeback to make a significant difference.
I'm extremely optimistic for GE. I'm extremely optimistic for Northwestern Pennsylvania. And I'm extremely optimistic, quite honestly, for our entire country.
GE Transportation is one of the oldest companies in Erie and also one of the largest. At its peak, GE employed more than 16,000 area residents. Today, that number has dwindled to less than 3,000.
We're going to show you some innovation that we're investing in Erie.
Very cool.
All right, come on in. So Jamie, this is our virtual reality room. Put on these glasses, and then we can walk up to the screen. So you'll now start getting a 3D perspective.
Oh, wow.
Of a locomotive, all right? And so we actually could be viewing this at the same time with our engineering center over in Bangalore, India. A tool like this is going to change over time and be even more productive than what we even have today.
So you walk up, I've got my hand on the little throttle. There's like buttons, you can touch everything. This is really cool.
Automation and technology have been significant job killers in recent years. In the past, most manufacturing jobs around here required just a high school degree. Today, for the more advanced jobs that are now available, companies like GE are looking for computer programmers and engineers. It's a trend that's playing itself out in factories all across the country.
This plant, just like the rest of the world, we have to reinvent ourselves every day. So the type of jobs that were available 100 years ago at this plant or even around the world have changed. And so we're really all about trying to get that skill, that required skill, and the type of skills we're going to be needing will continue to evolve, over time.
We were at GE and they kept saying, well, we've had to reinvent ourselves. The workers are going to have to reinvent themselves. What do you say to that?
They expect you to change without giving you the tools necessary to change, and you can't do that. When you're dealing with an average age of a workforce that's close to 50 years old, a lot of these people don't even know how to use computers. They've never had them, So yes, I agree, change needs to be driven, but you can't change overnight. You have to take the necessary steps to drive the change. Oh,
thank you so much.
You're too cute to be embarrassed.
This is awesome.
Scott Slauson is the union president at GE, looking out for as many as 1,600 workers and former workers. Of those 1,600, more than 1,200 are currently laid off.
You talk about how Donald Trump got in office, and this is simply where we're at today, is too many people feel that politicians are no longer listening to the needs of the average everyday person. They're too concerned about what companies like General Electric concern themselves with rather than listening to the needs of the true constituent body. So, that's how a guy like Donald Trump, who has never had a political career, ends up in office, because people believe that he's going to listen to what they're saying. I think they're at a point in their life where they feel, what do I got to lose?
Thank you for taking the time to provide us with your resume for review. We enjoyed learning about your background and experience. While regretfully we were unable to offer you an interview with our company at this time, we retain your application on file for a period of 1 year to review should an opening develop. And then this one says, we have received your resume and reviewed your qualifications. Although we were very impressed with your education and experience, we have offered this position to candidates who better fit the qualifications for the job.
So letters from different companies within Erie and some rejection emails from Erie Insurance, and waiting for the big rejection email from GE once it comes in the next couple of weeks.
I was thinking of that, like you're on the school board, you are graduating in 3 years' time, you coach basketball, I mean, you do everything you possibly can, and you're getting these rejection letters. Do you ever just go like, what more do you want?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but you know, with unemployment so high in Erie, everyone's looking for jobs, and obviously the jobs aren't here right now. And so to a degree, I think I kind of expected this to happen.
But where do you see yourself? Where's the future going for Justin?
Oh, geez, I don't know. If I can't get into, you know, one of those, you know, Fortune 500 companies, I'll run for office in the next 5 years. Because I think that, you know, Erie is at a turning point where it's necessary to have people running for office that have the right vision for Erie and want to work to revitalize it. But I haven't made any decisions yet.
I'm at the age where I don't worry as much about me as I do the future generation coming up, and creating a pipeline for the kids today to stay here in Erie and thrive here in Erie and continue a wonderful community. That's what I concern myself with. I have 2 wonderful daughters. They're both in college right now, and they're both going to be graduating soon. One is in Buffalo, one is in Cleveland. And I would love to give them the opportunity to come back to Erie and raise families of their own.
3 years gone by and kind of flew by, and all of a sudden now we're graduating today, and a lot of the people that helped me along the way it's a big day for them too. Well, this week I actually found out that the GE is doing a hiring freeze and I won't be able to get a position there. Almost a sign of the times in Erie for a younger person. I mean, a lot of people graduate from the universities here and they'll go elsewhere. For me, being a 5th generation Erie native, I have a stake in this community. I don't think I'd thrive in an environment where I'm not surrounded by my family. All dressed.
Oh my gosh, look at this! Oh my God! Oh! You look great.
Thanks.
You look really great. Maybe this will work better, Justin.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could change my mind tomorrow. I could change my mind in July. I mean, I really don't know what time will bring. I guess we'll see how my thoughts change in a year. I mean, if I have the ability to get a good job elsewhere and something works out, then maybe that does work out.
Justin Gallagher, finance.
Thanks. Nice ceremony up here. Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Jacob Jenkins, finance.
Right now, for me, all the options are on the table.
Everybody wants to know what's going to keep jobs, what's going to create jobs. I think everybody was hoping that he was going to be the difference. I mean, for once, I just feel like the whole fight for the blue-collar worker has just fizzled out. And it's like anything. I mean, it all sounds great on the campaign trail. And then it comes time to put it into action. And it's a different story. He hasn't delivered, in my book, on what he said he was going to do. So he's got to keep this front and center, or he won't be reelected. Republicans probably won't win the next presidential election in general. So now is the time to deliver, and he's got 4 years to do it. There can be a real change. I think that's what the hope is that people have. Because without hope, you have nothing.
Still ahead, we'll get an update from Justin Gallagher following his college graduation and ask him about a possible run for higher office. And after the break, we'll take a closer look at Erie's economy and dig into why manufacturing productivity continues to rise while employment numbers drop. You're streaming CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope. Welcome back to our latest edition of CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope. Before we get to our expert panel of journalists, we want to dig into some of the economic factors at play in the town of Erie. And for that, we turn to Penn State economics professor Ken Louie.
Like many other places across the country, we are undergoing rapid change. As you've said, manufacturing is still a pretty heavily concentrated industry in this part of the country, but it's been declining in terms of employment. And that, by the way, is a national trend. If you go back to the early 20th century, manufacturing employment was upwards of 30% of the total workforce. But now, nationally, manufacturing employment is down significantly. It's down to only about 8%. Much of the impetus for these changes is due to rapid technological innovations that have led to productivity improvements, which has meant that we can now produce more output using fewer workers. What I will say is that Erie has the benefit of having a very, very cohesive and socially viable environment, so that in spite of these challenges, what I find in my interactions with the local population is that there's a certain sense of resilience, a certain sense of camaraderie. And I think that's one of the strengths that will help us make those adaptations that I talked about.
During his campaign for the White House, Mr. Trump repeatedly pledged a return of those manufacturing jobs Professor Louie was talking about.
We've lost nearly 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs since these two Hillary-backed agreements were signed. Among the worst we've ever done, among the most destructive agreements we've ever signed.
We're going to bring back our jobs to start off. We got the poverty, they got the factories, the jobs, and the wealth.
In this new American future, American workers will always come first. America first. Always come first. This will include a complete revitalization of the Michigan manufacturing sector.
Let's bring in Philip Bump here in New York and Charlie LaDuff in Detroit. Philip is a national correspondent for the Washington Post. He went to high school and college in Ohio, and his family now lives in Pittsburgh. And Charlie is a journalist and author of the book Detroit, An American Autopsy. I'm pleased to have you both. Philip, let me start with you. Unpack that pledge from then candidate Donald Trump. What vision is he putting forward when he talks about American infrastructure, and how viable is that?
Sure. So, I think the key phrase that Donald Trump uttered was complete revitalization. He said we're going to see a complete revitalization of the manufacturing sector in Michigan. It is absolutely true. He puts his finger on one of the core problems with the decline in manufacturing, which is that it is less expensive to manufacture things outside of the United States often than it is to manufacture them inside the United States. Therefore, he said, we'll tax things that come back into the United States to increase the cost of them. It is, however, not at all true that we can see a complete revitalization, because a major driver of the decrease in industrialization in the United States is automation. It is robots. It is people being replaced by machines in the factories themselves, which increases productivity but makes it almost impossible to put all those people back to work.
So yeah, there has been a lot of talk about automation. Charlie, in your book, you write in American Autopsy, quote, a high school dropout could count on the factory or the tool and die shops or the gas stations if he needed them. The assembly line would live forever, we thought. What options are there now for young people who may not have a high school degree?
$9 an hour. You could work the window at Burger King or Tim Hortons. There's nothing out here. So, we're moving. I'm noticing this now, and it's particularly, it's the new discussion amongst the media. Well, most of it has to do with robots. That's true. But since we normalized trade with China since 2000, 60% of the loss of manufacturing jobs comes from automation. 40% came from these trade deals. You can't make that go away. This is huge, and it's, I think, more than just, can Trump turn it around in 100 days? I didn't know this was a referendum on Trump doing anything. The real point is we're dying out here, and this is a guy that at least recognize it. I don't know how he recognized it from a skyscraper in Manhattan, but he did.
Well, what about that, Philip? The notion that it's not just automation. Really, when you talk about job loss, trade does have something to do with it.
Well, that's why I said that the idea that it was going to be a complete revitalization was off the mark. It certainly is the case that there can be things that are done to revitalize the industry to some extent. But the problem is that Donald Trump's entire campaign was centered around this nostalgic idea of an America that existed in the 1950s and 1960s. And the problem is the world has changed. We're going to continue to see a lot more change along these lines. We're seeing, for example, the emergence of self-driven trucks, for example. That's going to be a huge disruptor to the trucking industry. It's looming on the horizon, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about it besides to try and legislate them out of existence. These are the sorts of challenges, those sorts of disruptions to the economy have huge effects on American workers, but it is not the case that you can simply wind back the hands of time and go to a time when those things didn't exist. And that's what Donald Trump promised.
I'm not sure about that. I don't even think I agree with it, because the majority of voters weren't living in 1950. What he was doing, what he did, I thought, from the people I know out here, is at least he acknowledged and expressed the desperation out here. Detroit's hit. He expressed the outrage. And most people that I know that voted for him don't expect him to do anything. Like he's an oaf. Look what's going on in Washington. It's a great show. And what people out here are saying is, you know what? The media, the bureaucracy, the government, have your show. Have your discussion amongst yourself, but don't change anything. No tax codes, no new tax codes, no wall, no new war, none of it, because we're trying to catch our breath out here and figure out what we're gonna do for our children. So nobody is looking for Andy Taylor here. We're just looking for a chance. And everybody knows he can't deliver it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything.
Well, I mean, I would say I'm not sure everyone knows that he can't do anything, but I would not disagree at all that this was an incredibly successful bit of political rhetoric, and for very obvious reasons. Yes, there is a large part of the population, particularly in those states, those 3 states that Donald Trump won by a margin of 78,000 votes that made the difference in the Electoral College. Those are places where this is a very salient issue. That's absolutely the case. And his rhetoric around, let's focus on this, we need to address this, was very important, very powerful. The question is that there are absolutely people who believe that he could do what he said, which is revitalize the manufacturing industry, and it simply is not the case that he's going to be able to do it at the scale that he promised.
And I do remember talking to people out on the National Mall on Inauguration Day who said they did expect him to deliver, that they felt as though he did make promises and they expected that he deliver on those promises. But I want to play a bite now. Here's what President Trump said in the Rose Garden this month, announcing the U.S. departure from the Paris Climate Accords.
It is time to put Youngstown, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, along with many, many other locations within our great country, before Paris, France. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
So, Philip, you wrote an analysis piece after that. You are someone who grew up, essentially spent your formative years around the Youngstown area. You have family in Pittsburgh. And you wrote, this was the headline of your analysis piece, quote, Donald Trump valiantly rises to the defense of Pittsburgh of 1975. Explain that.
So, I mean, to the point that I was making earlier, this is Donald Trump is appealing to a nostalgic sense of what America used to do, what America used to produce, which is absolutely the case. We absolutely did produce those things. Pittsburgh was a big steel hub. It was a place where people went and things were made. But that's not what Pittsburgh is anymore. And so Donald Trump was in that argument saying, I'm putting Pittsburgh over Paris, was essentially saying, I'm putting that old vision of Pittsburgh, that 1970s vision of steel workers trotting down, the Boulevard of the Allies to go to work, whatever it was, that was the vision that he was putting forward. But Pittsburgh has evolved past that. And what they have done that's been successful is, to the point Charlie made earlier, there's a lot of jobs, for example, in healthcare. There's been a transition of what Pittsburgh's economy looks like. Pittsburgh is now a fairly successful city, particularly by Rust Belt standards, and that is because they are not relying upon the manufacturing base in the way they used to. They didn't have a choice, but they've evolved. It is a different city than what it was then, and it is a city now that wants to be in the Paris Accord, for example. It's a city that voted against Donald Trump, and there's a lot of factors that come into play that make what Donald Trump said in comparison to Paris a throwback as opposed to a representation of what's actually going on.
All right, Charlie and Philip, we have to take a quick break. We'll pick this up in a moment. You're watching CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope. We're back now with Charlie LeDuff and Philip Bump. So, Charlie, I want to talk about local leadership and read a quote from your book about convicted former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. Quote, "It was as sad as it was appalling," you wrote. "A black city in which the most prominent leader plundered, pillaged, and lied, all the while presenting himself as its guardian angel against the white devil." Talk about the role, Charlie, of political leadership in helping a city like Detroit recover.
Detroit's interesting because, you know, it's like a lot of towns where it's machine politics. So a lot of our talent, you know, like Phillips, I don't know where you're based out of, brother, but like you're not home anymore. Like I quit the New York Times, left LA, and came home. Everybody here that wanted to do something in politics leaves. So we now have new political leadership. At least it's packaged itself as that, but it's the old political leadership. And here's a piece of news. The mayor of Detroit now, the savior, is a person of interest in a federal corruption probe with the TARP money that they sent here to tear down houses. So white, black, pre-bankruptcy, post-bankruptcy, we're in the same spot. I don't know, I think you can feel it on me. I'm angry and I'm scared and I'm desperate for my kid. And our talent is gone. And if you're watching this, come home. Because we're going to get it right. We're going to get it right.
I want to talk, Philip, about the political landscape there. Stan Greenberg, who coined the term Reagan Democrats, wrote this about voters in Macomb County who backed President Obama and then voted for Donald Trump. Right. He said, quote, "These voters have great faith that Donald Trump will bring back jobs that have left the United States. This was one of their greatest hopes for the Trump presidency." Greenberg says that there is now no buyer's remorse. So how are these voters going to be measuring the president, do you think?
Well, I think Charlie raises a lot of good points, but I think one of the key points that he raises is the fact that people are judging Donald Trump on his desire to try and affect change more than his ability to affect change. It is, I think that while he did make this promise to bring back the manufacturing sector, and while there were a lot of voters that took him at his word for that, that he is doing things like canceling TUPP, which the effects of that can certainly be debated whether or not that actually made a significant difference or would have made a significant difference in terms of what manufacturing looks like in the United States.
Action,
that he was doing that exactly, something I'll be looking at. I mean, look, Macomb County, I mean, not to like keep dropping cred, but my mom lived in Macomb County for years, and you walk the streets there and it's empty storefront after empty storefront, and it is hard not to see that as disheartening. It is totally valid that people are frustrated and concerned about what happens in their hometowns, what happens where they live. Donald Trump is at least saying, I am different and I'm going to break what's happening in the United States in a way that appeals to folks, and in a way that the Democratic establishment, as embodied by Hillary Clinton, was clearly unable to do.
Okay, we're running out of time. Philip's mom is from Macomb County. Charlie, you wrote this about Macomb County, this idea of, quote, blue-collar suicide. What does that mean?
That means basically it was working class whites decided to go Republican, right? Because at least in affirmative action, they weren't going to lose their job to a black guy. They're just going to lose. So that they don't have a special box. You know, they're not one of the minorities that deserve something. Finally, somebody paid attention to them, and look what they did. They bolted the Republican establishment, which wasn't good for them. They sold them wars that their sons fought, you know, my brothers. They sold them tax cuts that they didn't get. They sold them trade deals that weren't good for them, and they sold them banking deregulation that destroyed the aluminum side of Cape Cod. A guy comes out and says, hey, I know you're out there, Macomb. No one's ever talked to you. And naturally, they gravitate towards him. But I live the next county over from Macomb, and there's not a great sense that, you know, we stare at these factories. We know they're not coming back, but at least the one that's still got to shift, please tell me that that's not going to.
Charlie, last question. We only have a couple minutes left. A report from the nonprofit Global Detroit and the New American Economy finds that immigrants living in Detroit helped create or preserve 1,768 local manufacturing jobs, translating to $489.8 million in spending power from the city's immigrant population. What role are immigrants, you think, playing in Detroit?
It's Detroit. We're all immigrants, whether like you came from the South, right? You're Louisiana, but we have the biggest Arab population in the United States. We have a thriving Latino community, East Asians. Those that contribute create a better society. So we're richer for it. Yeah, they're our family. So, you know, I don't really even think of them as immigrants. They're just people in my community, but they're human beings that work hard and love their children. If you fit that bill, please move here. We'd love to have you.
All right, well, there's so many issues that we could sit here and talk about all day long, but I'm glad we had a chance to talk to both of you about at least some of them. Philip Bump and Charlie LaDuff, thanks to you both.
I don't want to leave.
All right, we don't want you to leave. Stick around.
Bye.
Come back
See
anytime.
you, Phil.
Thanks. Coming up, Justin Gallagher became the youngest elected official in Erie County when he won his race for school board back in 2015. But he also represents one of the key hardships facing his town, the struggle for young people to find work. My sit-down interview with Justin is coming up after the break. You're streaming CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope.
CBSN. CBS News, always on.
Here's are all my delegate credentials from when I was a delegate at the Republican National Convention.
What is this?
That was from when I won the 30 Under 30 award by Red Alert Politics website. It was like the 30 of the more influential Republicans in the country under 30 years old. You know, the elected leaders in Erie, they try to spin it that Erie's this, great place and everything is okay when, in reality, everything is wrong currently. They're not fooling anybody. When you go door to door, when I was running for delegate and running for school board, you hear from real people that that people want to take the community in a new direction.
That was Justin Gallagher giving our Jamie Yukas a tour of his home during her visit to Erie. When we last saw Justin, he had just graduated from college but was struggling to find a full-time job. Recently, I sat down with Justin and got an update. Where do things stand now?
Pretty similar. Well, I went from, in that last month, I was substitute teaching in the Erie City School District. And then since I graduated, I had to end my internship at GE. So I sent some more applications out. I didn't hear anything back, so I ultimately decided to apply for graduate school at Penn State. So then I went through that application process. I took the GMAT, the Graduate Management Admissions Test, and as fast as I could. And then I got accepted at Penn State. So I'll be back there in the fall pursuing a master's degree. And then that allows me to go back to GE. So I can continue that internship while I'm studying.
What goes through your mind when you think about that time trying to find a job in your hometown?
I guess it just goes to show, I guess, what's happening in Erie. Even somebody that's, college educated, won't necessarily find a job because of the change that's occurring.
Discouraging?
Yeah, unless people can start turning things around and voting and making policy decisions that help people and not themselves, the downward spiral will probably continue.
And why won't you leave?
I have, I guess, close roots, or I have deep roots in the community, being a fifth generation Erie native. So, I care about the community and I consider it pretty much my family, and then obviously my family has been here for so long that I just I ruled that out as a possibility, at least for now. I want to try to get the master's degree, see if I can get some full-time employment at one of the larger companies in Erie, and also in the meantime I want to try to impact the community in a positive way and hope that the next generation has it a little bit easier than I did.
Is that why you ran for school board?
Yeah, I want to see positive change for Harbor Creek, and at least at that level I can help make sure that the curriculum's tailored for skills for the jobs that are available in Erie. So at least I cared about my school. I went there from kindergarten to graduation day. So at least I was trying to give back to the community and help future graduates be able to find jobs in Erie. So that was the first step in trying to help the community on a small scale.
When you ran as a Republican. Why?
When I registered to vote, I registered as a Republican, and then because I have a lot of conservative values, I think for the most part Republicans try to be fiscally responsible, and but I do realize that I have fiscally conservative views and I have more socially liberal or socially left of center views. So, if I consider myself like a right of center moderate when all is said and done, when you balance everything out.
So as a Republican, how do you feel the president has done so far?
Just like anybody else, there's things that I like about Donald Trump and the way he conducts himself. There's things that I don't like. In the first 100 days, 150 days, he's been able to act on a lot of things that he said he was going to act on in the campaign, which is nice to see. It's kind of a relief, even though some of the stuff maybe I don't agree with, but it's nice to see somebody for a change, doing what they said they were going to do, which is
hasn't really happened.
So let's turn it back to you and your own experience. You became the youngest elected official in Erie County when you became a member of the school board back in 2015. What has your experience been like since, and what would you tell other millennials who are thinking about perhaps getting into public service?
It's been an interesting experience. I mean, being a millennial and running for public office is obviously a challenge, and then especially being a member of a board when I'm the youngest person by almost 20 years. I mean, it's tough to garner respect from some of these older individuals. But you gain respect by, showing up to every meeting, which I did. I mean, there's 3 meetings a month, and I've been to every one for the past year and a half. I think millennials in general need to look at the downward spiral that the country's in and the communities are in, and you need to say, am I willing to put myself out on the line and run for office for the betterment of others? And that's kind of where I stand.
But it requires sacrifice.
Yeah, running for office and having your name out there and stuff isn't necessarily fun. I mean, you can run into some negativity, but I'm a very positive person, and I try to combat negativity with positivity. And if somebody's negative towards me, I'll show them, dispute it in a positive manner and show them, what I'm trying to accomplish and why I'm doing it.
So you have 2 years left in your term on the school board. We know that a number of state officials are pushing you to run for higher office. Have you given that any thought?
Yeah, I think that someday I probably will run for a higher office, just so I can continue the good fight. I think that I've seen on the school board that a lot of issues are problems with the state, like as far as allocation of school funding, that's a state issue. The whole tax structure, that's a state issue. There's a whole heck of a lot of things that can be fixed at the state level, but the school board has no control over, and the county government has no control over. So I think that if there's a lot of people that run for state representative, state senate, and you get a good group of people down in Harrisburg, I think that there could be positive change for the entire state of Pennsylvania.
We want to thank you for watching CBSN Originals, America Redefining Hope. Red and Blue is coming up after the break. You're streaming CBSN, always on.
Healthcare heats up. Republican leaders in the Senate say they want a vote next week to overhaul Obamacare, but Democrats and even some Republicans have another idea. I'm Vladimir Dutia in for Elaine Keano, and this is Red and Blue. Ahead on the program, voters in Georgia's 6th district get ready to head to the polls Tuesday for a special congressional election. Can a young Democrat pull off a historic upset in what has become the most expensive House race ever? Plus, tell me how you really